A pesquisa científica das últimas décadas trouxe avanços impressionantes na descoberta de novos medicamentos. Mas no mundo com enormes desigualdades socioeconômicas, como ampliar e garantir o acesso da população a vacinas e remédios? Como dar conta dos desafios na saúde pública? Essas questões são um dos focos da cooperação entre o Brasil e a Bélgica. Esse ano, uma grande missão econômica belga vai trazer representantes de empresas com o objetivo de estreitar os laços com o nosso país. É, sem dúvida, um momento de oportunidades que dá margem a trocas de projetos e de ideias. Esse é o ponto de partida para a conversa que eu vou ter hoje com Luiz Castilho, Diretor de Relações Governamentais, Comunicação e Patient Advocacy da GSK, uma empresa internacional que tem na Bélgica um importante centro de fabricação. A Patrícia Neves, que está à frente do desenvolvimento de produtos que usam por base o RNA em Bio-Manguinhos, ela que é PhD em Biologia Celular e Molecular pela Fundação Oswaldo Cruz, e José Castillo, CEO da Quantoom e co-fundador da Univercells, farmacêutica cuja meta é tornar derivados biológicos mais baratos e disponíveis a partir de processos inovadores de produção. A nossa conversa vai ser em inglês, com legendas. Welcome, bienvenue, bem-vindos, bem-vindos, Patrícia, Luiz e José. It's an honor to have you here. So let's begin. Let's begin our conversation with the Medicine Nobel Prize awarded to researchers for their work on microRNA and its role in post-transcriptional gene regulation. That sounds very technical, but since the COVID-19 pandemic, much in the medical and biological research worldwide seems to be about RNA. Can you please, Patrícia, explain to non-specialists how important this is?
Yes. Hello, Leila. It's a pleasure to be here with you and my dear colleagues. And related to the RNA Nobel Prize, yes, of course, we could actually see all these awards being granted to the researchers in the field of RNA. It's something that we took many years of research until we realized that the versatility of the RNA molecule and how we could use this versatility to prevent and treat disease. So last year, we had the Nobel Prize for the mRNA, and this year for the microRNAs. Those are RNAs molecules, but still different functions. And microRNAs, for example, act as regulators of our genetics. And as regulators, we can correct some defects from our genetic code and change the course of the complicated diseases like neurodegenerative disease and cancer. So the Nobel Prize was awarded because this means a revolution in the way we treat this disease. Though that's why we are having so many prizes being granted to the RNA area.
It sounds complicated, but anyway, it takes us to the next question. How can breakthroughs in science become vaccines and drugs, and how can such products become available? In that sense, how important is the cooperation between countries in general and between Belgium and Brazil in particular? José.
Thank you for the question, Leila, and actually thank you, Patrícia, because based on what you just said, my answer will be very simple. Because indeed today we serve actually on a new, very exciting wave, with these 2 Nobel Prizes in a row this year and last year, recognizing all the work that has been done into the RNA space and all the potential of this new modality. And what we see, from the collaboration perspective, is today an incredible opportunity for companies like ours. So We are not a pharma company, we are a technology company. In this case, we have with Patrícia and her team and the full support of the Osvaldo Cruz Foundation and Bio-Manguinhos more specifically. There is a big support for us to work together, us providing technology. Patrícia's team is the science, and so here we see a great combination between science and technology to dramatically accelerate the development of new drugs that I am absolutely convinced will dramatically improve the affordability. Because until COVID-19 or prior to COVID-19, RNA was there, of course, it existed already, but it was not obvious for the pharmaceutical world that this could become something usable for many diseases. And today what we see is that this can dramatically decrease the time needed to develop a new drug on one side, and that once that new drug is developed, it will have, we think, a dramatic impact on the cost to produce the drug and consequently on the affordability of those RNA-based drugs.
Yeah, cost is a very important issue. Luiz, GSK's specialty medicines are focused on infectious diseases, HIV, respiratory, immunology, oncology. Treatments are becoming more and more personalized, which is a good thing, but very often encompasses high-cost therapies. Are these policies? Are there policies in Belgium to make those treatments more accessible to the majority of the population despite their cost? And what are the strategies adopted by Belgium to guarantee universal access to health treatment nationwide?
So thank you very much for the question. GSK is a global company, so it's a highly concern from the company how we make our innovation arrive to our patients or the whole population in a broader way. This means that we are very open to do local arrangements such as that we do here in Brazil, for example, with Fiocruz. Fiocruz is a very good example. That we transfer the technology with the product, so it's not just a sale commitment, is a broader commitment when we bring the innovation, but the innovation with the technology to the country and we make the production here locally be much cheaper than if we produce outside of Brazil, for example. So these kind of arrangements that I'm giving you here as an example, when think about Brazil, currently we have 11 of them in course. So the first one that we did here was in 1985, so almost 40 years doing this kind of arrangement. And also in other drugs that we have, outside of vaccines, for example, which is the main product that we do this kind of arrangement here in Brazil, besides HIV, that we also have this kind of arrangement, locally speaking. We have other instruments to see how can we foster public policies in a more broader way and make the whole population in somehow have access to the products that are made by GSK. When you think about there is an index, an international access index that measures the whole pharmaceutical companies in the whole world, and the GSK this year was win again the prize that we won 8 times already. So again, this shows the element that this is a very high concern for the company, and how can we make this arrive to our patients.
Okay, in Belgium and worldwide, that's what I get, right? And Jose, how can developed economies and the EU reduce the restrictions imposed by intellectual property rights on access to medicines and other therapies?
Yeah, so this is, Leila, a fundamental question, IP. So from my perspective, I wouldn't look at this from the restriction angle, but it's very interesting what Luiz just mentioned. And actually, I told him previously that I also come from a GSK school 20 years ago. And for me, it's not about, managing or reducing restrictions. It's about willingness to share. And so this is exactly what he said. I spent, beautiful years working for GSK, developing new drugs with strong IP positions. But at the same time, it's the choice of the company to transfer this under certain agreements to other countries and other companies for them to produce it. So for me, we live into a global economy. So it's important that every single company, and it's not just, Europeans or Americans filing IP and others looking at others, filing IP. It's today, actually, there is lots of new IP generated in Brazil and in other countries. So I think for me, it's really important that we acknowledge that there is IP, we value IP, and we promote collaborations and license agreements. So, and this is actually what we are doing. Of course, we are a tech company. So for us, it's part of our DNA to develop new stuff. We hope that the new technologies provide value. And of course, our mission is to provide that value, so to transfer the IP for others to use it. So, for me, we are already, these are all times where there was a restriction. So for me, it's about partnerships and willingness to transfer, and in both directions. Because I can tell you, I worked with Patrícia for a certain time, and there is a lot of innovation and a lot of IP created in Brazil that I would love to benefit actually the other way around.
Yeah, cooperation seems to be the name of the game, right? And Luiz, where does Brazil stand in terms of public policies to high-cost drugs? How can the industry contribute to improve this agenda?
So Brazil has a very interesting agenda, or we could say advanced agenda, if not the best agenda worldwide. When you think about vaccines, so our immunization program is a very strong program worldwide, and a lot of countries try to see what Brazil did to have such a strong immunization program here. And not just immunization, HIV is a second example that we can also bring here to the table as a very important and interesting program that we already developed. We still have space to improve programs focused in disease that, historically speaking, was not the focus when you think about public policies, such as oncology, for example. Currently, the government is implementing a new oncology law in Brazil, and they are structuring the system to absorb this law and make all the necessary efforts to improve this part of the public policy that is necessary in Brazil, especially when you think about longevity, which is a very interesting agenda since the Brazilians are living more and more every year. So these are the key elements that we see here as GSK in a broader way.
Mm-hmm. Patrícia, Luiz and Jose have already talked a little bit about cooperation, but I'd like to hear you. How can bilateral relations between Brazil and Belgium support the goal of equal access to medicine and vaccination? Can you bring some examples of cooperation and successful initiatives?
Yes, of course. Leila, for me, win-win partnerships are fundamental to innovation. It's impossible to take a product since the bench until to the people without partnerships. In particular, our partnership with Quantoom was fundamental in improving our understanding of the production processes for RNA products. Jose already talked about that. And it greatly helped us in accelerating the development of our first product, the RNA COVID-19 vaccine, related to the WHO initiative for democratizing this platform in low and middle-income countries. And they also helped us in the installation of the first RNA GMP area in Brazil. So we are very, very proud of these achievements that we've made together. And this would position Brazil for the first time as a potential transferer of these technologies to other countries that are in need in Latin America and also in Africa. So I think that Jose already talked about that. I think that our mission match a lot because we are willing to share what we've learned during this time and what we are going to develop together. And of course, Luiz already mentioned also that another good example of partnerships between Bio-Manguinhos and Belgian companies is GSK partnership with Bio-Manguinhos. Last week we were at DCVMN on a network meeting for developing countries vaccine manufacturers, and someone asked us, why GSK? Since the beginning. And our mentor, Dr. Akira Homa, said, because GSK was the only one that accepted to sit with us and negotiate something that could give us the capacity of manufacturing in Brazil. So I think that those are, we have other examples, other partnerships that Bio-Manguinhos developed during this 47 years of existence, but I think that those two are very significant for us. So this partnership with GSK allowed us to include important vaccines in our national immunization program. And we can see that when we are willing to be together, we can change games in this area.
And this openness is certainly very important. And what are the incentives, other incentives from the government, for instance, needed to encourage technology transfer between the two countries, Patrícia?
I think that if we have more situations where we could know better other Belgian innovation companies and to know Belgian innovation ecosystem, and also for them to know us, could be a very good opportunities to discuss, because for us to know Quantoom was a coincidence during Bio International meeting. So I think that if both governments could improve these opportunities to be together, it would also improve our capacity to partner with other Belgian companies.
Mm-hmm. Jose, despite being a global South country, Brazil is globally recognized for having developed a wide vaccination coverage. What can developed countries learn from Brazil's strategies in this matter?
I would say that over the course of last century, in most, not to say in all Western countries, the national vaccine manufacturers have been shut down because there was a belief or a vision that this should be done by the private sector. And I am in the private sector, Luiz in the private sector. I think we do that well. But for me, Brazil is a beautiful counterexample, in the sense that it's part of the constitution that the government is supposed to take care of its population. And for me, working with the Oswaldo Cruz Foundation, for me, I'm amazed by actually the way this organization delivers, against the belief that, when it's public or government, it's not good. I can tell you it's excellent. So for me, that's something that we could, reconsider very seriously in European countries or North American countries, that, sometimes it's good for the society actually not to create competition around fundamental drugs or vaccines that are, a must actually to treat your population. For me, it's very inspiring.
Good to know. Luiz, what are the key obstacles keeping the Brazilian population from accessing innovative medicines? Is taxation on the pharmaceutical industry, for example, too high? What works and what doesn't work?
So when you think about tax in Brazil, I think specifically for medicines, I think this is a very important topic because when you compare Brazil with the rest of the world, Leila, the average of taxes in medicines here in Brazil is around 33%. Worldwide, the average is 6%. If you take as example France, for example, that it has also a very high tax with high tax level, and cut specifically in the medicine industry, the level of tax is going to be 2.1%. So again, we have a lot of space to discuss this tax agenda, and this data comes from Sindusfarma, which is the syndicate from the pharmaceutical companies here in a study that they did. And the idea is how can we foster this agenda inside the government and show this difference that you are looking currently when you think about the Brazilian market and other markets worldwide. When you think about what is working and what is not working in Brazil, I'm a huge fan of our public health system. I think that the idea of having a system that is going to treat everyone is amazing. Our system was inspired in the United Kingdom system, NICE system, and we still have space to improve when you think about not just incorporation of products, but also the level of assistance that we have with the Brazilians when you compare the private and public systems here in Brazil. So comparing Brazil with Brazil, we see that there is still space to improve. But this does not mean that what it was built so far in the public health system is not good. In the pandemic, we saw this in a very good perspective. The level of importance of our public health system, the local partnerships that you have with institutions such as Fiocruz, for example, to have the capability of producing vaccines or medicines locally when you think in a broader perspective. So again, I don't see this equation in an easy way, the solution in an easy way, but I do not see that we are not going the right direction. So, in my opinion, we have a way to go, but we are going together, government, industry, civil society, public institutions such as Fiocruz, other industries very important such as Quantoom, to bring also innovation to Brazil in a very good perspective, in a very good way.
Patrícia, what's your take on the brain drain phenomenon in Brazil? How can Brazil work to prevent qualified professionals in the health technology industry from leaving the country to find better recognition, working conditions, and financial support?
That's a very good question. In fact, it's very difficult to do science in Brazil. Here, we don't even have the scientific profession regulated. We don't have researcher as a profession in our country. And it's quite difficult for a young doctor to place themselves in the market, because here most of them need to be absorbed by public sector, as we don't have many technology companies that can offer vacancies to these professionals. So I think that it's a matter of love being a scientist in Brazil. And in addition to this, we have many difficulties in purchasing imported materials and the lack of financing. And recently, we started living the process of lack of trust in science in Brazil. So I think that it's something that brings this picture of a brain drain. And of course, for every country, but particular for Brazil, to guarantee a bright future, we need to address these gaps and maintain people here developing things, producing intellectual property, and bring the possibilities of growth for our country.
Climate change has been a great cause of anxiety worldwide, naturally, not only when it comes to the increasing risk of natural disasters, but also regarding the increasing risk of pandemics. Science magazine, for instance, argues that climate change could aggravate more than 50% of known human pathogens. Luiz, how can Brazil and Belgium, with that in mind, adopt a holistic approach towards health diplomacy?
So when you think about the health agenda, the conception that you have here as GSK and GSK Brazil and GSK Belgium in Belgium is that we can use this agenda to foster other agendas that are more linked to our environment, for example. So when you think about our commitment and what we have as commitment, thinking in a GSK perspective, we could bring here to the table the commitments that we have to produce products that in somehow use recyclable materials, kinds of gases that are not polluted or do not are less polluted, we could say. There is also a commitment that we have about how can we foster the agenda of reversible products. So once I use my medicine, what I do with the blister, what I do, how I dispose my medicine if I'm not in use anymore, and how do I make that this kind of trash goes to the correct destination and not to the wrong destination. So these are examples of commitments that we have here that we also have strong intentions to build together with government, the Brazilian government, specifically talking about Brazil, ways of looking into this agenda as health as an inductor of environment. This is already in some parts of the government agenda, but the idea here is how can we bring also our ideas to add into these discussions that are currently happening. Just to give you some data, the commitments of GSK and what you have worldwide, and you think about some index that measure this kind of commitment. The Dow Jones Sustainability Index considers GSK as one of the pharmaceutical companies that since 2014 that has this agenda as a very strong element. Just to highlight here, Leila, some data that you have internally.
And talking about environment, Brazil is recognized for its incredible range of biodiversity, really important for developing pharmaceutical products. What's your take on that, Jose?
Actually, it's a very interesting question in the sense that indeed Brazil has an incredible nature and a very vast territory. And today, coming back to what we said, as a modality. So, we look at this really as a new incredible opportunity, which is about using what we call synthetic biology. So today, if someone identifies an incredible molecule, out of a certain tree or tree that you would identify in the Amazon, so synthetic and modeling bioinformatics tools actually to transform or to code any single molecule you will be interested to RNA that will, transfer it and give the message to the right part of your body for your body to produce it. So reason why we are, actually so excited about this new tech, and certainly the reason, coming back to what we said, certainly the reason why there was 2 Nobel Prize of Medicines in a row, recognizing the benefits of RNA for the future.
We've talked about COVID-19 already, but has the COVID-19 pandemic affected the way Brazil and Belgium envision international cooperation in the health sector? What's your perception, Patrícia?
Leila, I think that it has affected the way we all interact in the scientific world, because there was the bad side of pandemics that we all know, of course, and there is the good side, let's say, if we could say this way, that was that it brought us this sense that without cooperation, we will not go anywhere, because in a pandemic situation, if everyone is not safe, the one is not safe. So I think that it was very clear during the pandemic that only through cooperation we can overcome the inequities in access to technological products. And I think that it's a lesson to be learned from this situation we passed the last years.
Jose, how do you assess the status of multilateral negotiations for addressing the issue of access to medicines and vaccination?
I would certainly, surf on what Patrícia said. So indeed, we think that COVID-19 changed everything. So there was already, a movement or, a tendency to move from, what I would call the old times, beginning of the 20th century, when there was a kind of, what I could qualify as a top-down relationship between North and South, more to move into partnership between equals. But I think that COVID-19 changed that dramatically. And I think that it's great for all of us that actually we opened the field to to real collaborations, partnerships, and so that we don't see anymore Europe versus Africa or United States through versus Latin America. So we are partners, period. This is thanks to, as you said, Patrícia, thanks to COVID-19. It changed everything.
Very interesting. And how can the global health debate be efficiently addressed in international fora such as G20, Luiz?
The global health agenda is quite interesting because we have, when you think about countries' perspective, we have some common pains, we could say, in a specific disease. So that are the same topic in the United States or in African countries or European countries and in Brazil. I think the challenge when you think about global health perspective are the disease that we call here as negligence disease, or the disease that in somehow are more incident in countries with a lower income, because the challenge here is how can we put research and development in disease that in somehow are in countries that the level of the level of public policy commitment is not that high, such as the other countries that we mentioned here. As GSK, we consider that this agenda is very important. As an example, Leila, we can mention what we are doing here in Brazil for malaria, for example. So GSK is investing through a global partnership in new technologies to malaria and other negligence disease. Malaria, there is the arm for treatment and the arm for vaccines. So both research are being held in countries that are out of this scope of research and development when you think about globally. And the level of response that we have for this agenda is it's amazing because the first wave that we did it here in Brazil, that was the incorporation of tafenoquine. The impact of this agenda was directly in the Yanomami Indians that were suffering a lot of with malaria. So again, it's how this incorporation or how this kind of research and development, we could say in a broader way, really impacts people everywhere independent of the country that they are living, if it's rich, poor, or middle income.
One last question to the three of you. How important is the Belgian economic mission to Brazil? Starting with Patrícia.
In my opinion, having the Belgian mission in Brazil demonstrates the strength of our country and its importance in Latin American region. As we all have said and agreed today, win-win partnerships between these two countries tend to yield great results. We already have great results from these partnerships, successful partnerships. So being with this mission, we demonstrate that we can. We are very open to work together, and I think that Belgium is demonstrating that Brazil is important. That's my thinking.
What about you, Jose? You are the one among us who lives in Belgium. What do you make of it?
No, I will start saying that I think that Rio de Janeiro has twice the size of Belgium in population. So all this to say that we are a small country, but we are a dense country and we are a highly technological country. But as a small country, in the middle of Europe, we are very much interested, and we must actually look outside of the country, obviously, because the country is too small. And we are very much supported. I'm talking of obviously for my company, but I see, plenty of my colleagues. We are very much supported by our diplomacy and, our agencies, supporting exports. And for us, our history with Brazil, myself, not only my current company, in my former company and in the company before, which actually was GSK, this is a long history that has always been, very, very successful. So for me, being part of this, state missions is always a pleasure and very, very important.
Last but not least, Luiz, I'd like to have your take on the importance of the economic mission.
So, as my previous hat was government, so I understand a lot the level of importance of this mission. The idea of the mission is how can we put everyone together in the same table to discuss very important topics for the country, and the private sector, the companies, we could say in this sense, are also a very important element to be included into these discussions, to foster agendas that are going to impact all the Brazilians. So the idea here is exactly, and the agenda was built in a way that exactly having this perspective into consideration. And it will be a pleasure to receive all the Belgians, or the Belgian delegation, as we used to say in the Brazilian government here in Rio, and show to them also how can we add into this agenda, because it's not just a receiving agenda when you say about what is Belgium is doing. It's also changing knowledge about what you are doing well here in Brazil, because we also have good elements that we implemented here that might help Belgium, that taking Jose's speech here as an element is the size of Rio de Janeiro. So the proportion of Brazil is something that European countries are not used to work, and we do this in a very good way. So again, I think this is a very key and important element to exchange knowledge in areas that we do well and they do well. So this is my expectations about the mission in November.
Great. Thank you, Luiz. Thank you, Patrícia. Thank you, José. Thank you so much for your time, your contribution. Merci, gracias, with a Spanish accent. It's difficult for me to gracias. Anyway, thank you so much. Muito obrigada.
Thanks a lot for the organization and for the great debate. Obrigado as well.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for everything. It was nice to be with you here during the morning.
Thank you for inviting me to this conversation. I enjoyed a lot with these two big partners of Bio-Manguinhos.
It was a pleasure, Patrícia.
E obrigada a vocês que assistiram a nossa conversa. Até uma próxima.